Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're jumping straight into the absolute legend that is the 1971 D.B. Cooper skyjacking. We're cutting through the folklore and the tall tales to see exactly how cutting-edge forensic science, alongside a relentless new wave of internet detectives, are teaming up to finally crack the ultimate cold case. Let's get right into it. But before we round up the usual suspect lineup, we really have to ask ourselves a fundamental question. Can the tiniest of clues, stuff literally invisible to the naked eye, finally unmask a phantom half a century later? Because as we're gonna see, science might honestly be our absolute best shot at doing what the FBI just couldn't. Here is the roadmap for today. We'll start with the Thanksgiving skyjacking, then dig into the microscopic clues left behind. After that, we'll run through the prime suspects, take a deep dive into Richard McCoy, and finally, wrap up with the modern science of sleuthing.
All right, Section 1, the Thanksgiving skyjacking, the anatomy of a 1971 heist.
The timeline of this crime is just staggering. It's Thanksgiving Eve, November 24th, 1971. A guy in a sharp business suit waltzes through incredibly lax airport security, no ID required back then. He buys a ticket under the alias Dan Cooper and boards Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 in Portland. By 3 p.m., he's calmly sipping a bourbon and water and handing a flight attendant a bomb threat. By 5, the plane touches down in Seattle. He lets the terrified passengers go and secures his demands, a massive ransom and 4 parachutes. Then, at 8 p.m., he forces the skeleton crew back into the air toward Mexico, lowers the aft stairs into the pitch-black night, and literally jumps mid-air into the freezing, driving rain over the Pacific Northwest. And he did not jump empty-handed. He demanded, and got, $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills. To put that in perspective, today that's well over $1 million. And it wasn't light either. That cash weighed about 40 pounds. Just imagine strapping 40 pounds of dead weight to yourself, wearing nothing but a suit and a trench coat, and stepping out of a commercial airliner into the freezing abyss. He vanished into thin air, kicking off the greatest manhunt in U.S. aviation history. Section 2. The clues left behind. We're pivoting from folklore straight to forensic science.
So Cooper left almost nothing behind. Almost. Sitting right there on his seat, 18E, was a black clip-on tie. For decades, the FBI couldn't prove for sure it was his, leaving room for doubt. But recently, a group called the Citizen Sleuths ran a massive statistical analysis. They looked at the percentage of male passengers back then, how many of them smoked, and the odds of wearing that specific black clip-on tie. The result? A staggering 98% probability that this tie was worn by our hijacker. That makes it a rock-solid piece of physical evidence.
And when you throw that tie under an electron microscope, wow. The plot thickens. Embedded deep in the fabric are incredibly rare earth elements. We're talking cerium, strontium sulfide, bismuth, aluminum spirals that look like drill shavings, and the real smoking gun? Pure titanium shards. Back in 1971, pure titanium was incredibly rare. You'd mostly find it in highly specialized aerospace manufacturing, like Boeing's own supersonic transport program. This microscopic debris points a giant arrow at our hijacker being an engineer or manager working in cutting-edge metal fabrication, which is wild considering he hijacked a Boeing 727, right? It heavily implies he might have worked for the company that built the very plane he jumped out of. Then you've got the money. In 1980, years after the jump, a kid found rotting bundles of the ransom cash buried deep in the sand along the Columbia River. Well, researchers recently found diatoms embedded right into those brittle bills. If you're wondering what those are, diatoms are microscopic aquatic creatures living in river water. Because specific species live in very specific parts of a river, they basically act like a biochemical fingerprint. Finding these diatoms could literally help scientists trace the exact aquatic path that money floated before ending up in the sand. Microscopic life eventually tracking a 50-year-old flight path? How crazy is that? Moving on to Section 3, a lineup of suspects. Let's look at the armchair detective's favorites. Over the decades, sleuths have obsessively chased down a wild cast of characters. You've got guys like Robert Rackstraw, a highly trained Army pilot with known CIA ties. He fits the daredevil profile to a T, but the flight attendants took one look at his photo and said he wasn't the guy. Plus, he was honestly just too young. Then there's Sheridan Peterson, Marine, smoke jumper, and he actually worked at Boeing, which fits perfectly with that titanium tie evidence. Yet, he lived a totally quiet life with zero physical links to the actual crime. You've got Dwayne Weber, who gave a dramatic deathbed confession to his wife, but investigators dug into his life and found absolutely no hard evidence. And Dick Briggs, who used to brag at bars that he did it, until folks realized he completely faked his Vietnam parachute record. He didn't even know how to jump. Everyone has this incredibly compelling hook, but they all crash into a fatal flaw in the evidence. Section 4. Is it Richard McCoy, the ultimate copycat, or the real deal? It is so easy to see why the FBI immediately connected these two. Just 5 months after Cooper's heist, a former Green Beret named Richard McCoy pulled off a nearly identical skyjacking on another Boeing 727. McCoy clearly watched the news because he aggressively upped the ante and demanded $500,000. But here's the massive difference. Cooper was a total ghost who left no fingerprints and used a sophisticated-looking bomb. McCoy, super sloppy. He used a simple painted paperweight as a fake hand grenade and left his actual fingerprints and his own handwriting behind. Thanks to those huge amateur mistakes, the FBI nabbed McCoy just 2 days later. But McCoy's story absolutely doesn't end quietly in a cell. It turns straight into an action movie. While serving 45 years in a maximum security federal pen, he pulls off this insane escape. Step 1. He patiently smuggles artist's wax from the prison hobby shop to make a highly detailed mold of an army pistol. Step 2. He uses stolen dental plaster to cast a heavy replica, expertly painting it with shoe polish so it looks exactly like gunmetal. Step 3. He and his accomplices used the fake gun to take hostages, hijacked a prison garbage truck, and literally smashed through the main steel gates to freedom. Sadly, we are never going to get a confession out of him. 3 months after he busted out, the FBI cornered McCoy at a suburban house in Virginia. A massive shootout erupted right there on the front lawn, and McCoy was killed in the crossfire. Because of his violent end, he could never officially confirm or deny the huge rumors that he was the original D.B. Cooper. He took those secrets straight to the grave. Section 5. The Science of Sleuthing. Welcome to the Internet Vortex. The FBI might have officially closed the Cooper case, but passionate citizen sleuths definitely haven't, and they are still turning up unbelievable stuff. Just recently, an aviation YouTuber connected with McCoy's surviving family and found a parachute hidden away in a barn on their property. The claims about this chute were so compelling that it dragged the FBI right back out of retirement. Think about that. Over 50 years later, in 2024, this cold case is still triggering literal 8-car FBI raids to seize evidence. But true to the Cooper mystery, this new evidence instantly started a massive fight. And partially looking at the landscape right now, it's a fierce online rivalry. On one side, YouTuber Dan Greider claims this barn parachute perfectly matches the obscure modified one Cooper jumped with. On the totally opposite side, researcher Ryan Burns argues that if you look at FBI archival evidence, the barn parachute is an Air Force model, whereas every flight attendant swore Cooper used a Navy chute. It is an all-out battle of interpretations, and both sides are fiercely defensive of their theories. Which brings us exactly to where we are today. An article in The Debrief recently put it perfectly: a concrete solution to the mystery of D.B. Cooper has long felt out of reach. Every single time forensic science peels back a layer of the myth, or someone drags a dusty piece of evidence out of an old barn, we just get more questions. Every new clue just makes the maze even deeper. So what is the big takeaway from all this? With microscopic pure titanium pointing us at an aerospace worker, tiny river diatoms trying to map out a lost fortune, and a newly discovered barn parachute pointing us right back to Richard McCoy, we're basically staring at a totally fractured puzzle. Will the true identity of D.B. Cooper ever be known for sure? Or, half a century later, does the legend of the phantom skyjacker matter more to us than the actual man himself? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning everything.